in one of the Friday updates, the game team was talking about that the game was only half where it needs to be a success in our eyes. And it was a super sad moment. Everyone in the company was really down. Oh, we're gonna kill another game. It felt like this. I was sad like everyone else, but I also got really angry because I just had really started engaging with the game so much. And I really believed in it. I was like, no, this is a mistake. This game cannot die. I just had a strong conviction. It's a mistake to kill this game. So I wrote down like 15 things I would do as someone who never worked on a game. And I sent it to the game lead, Jon. And he was like, oh, it's really cool that you're thinking about all of this. You know, we're always also thinking about some of these things. You should also have a chat with Ilka. Ilka's a very busy guy. I had my meeting with him then the next week, and the meeting ended up lasting like 2 hours. And in July, a lot of Finnish people will go on vacation for 4 weeks, literally. So I went on a 3 or 4 week break to Canada, came back in early August, and on the first day I was back in the office, Ilka dragged me in a room and said, hey, we would like you to become the game lead for Brawl Stars.
Welcome, Frank, all the way from Finland. It's good to have you on this impromptu studio in our offices. For those that don't know, Frank is the game lead of Brawl Stars. You've been the game lead for almost five years now.
Coming August, it will be 5 years, yeah.
We're also joined by Doug. Actually, interesting story. Doug was at Supercell for a good number of years, working on 7 years, launching Brawl Stars, many other titles at Supercell. So Doug's now over at A16Z. Sorry, Frank, but the through lines that you all have some incredible stories to tell about, your journey, how Brawl was created. And I kind of want to get in your brain about, outside the professional resume, Frank, like how would you describe your gaming resume without using any of your actual professional LinkedIn experience? Like how would you describe yourself in those terms?
Well, my gaming resume. My dad inspired me very, very early on to be like very tech oriented and like when in the early 80s when computers were like not that widespread. So from the very beginning I started being fascinated about computer games. Back then there were like magazines with basic code. Yep. So I learned basic from that. Mm-hmm. and just started making my own games with my dad, literally.
Right from the get-go, you were making games.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't say by any means I was ever a good programmer, and I left that behind me as well to a degree. But yeah, like I was always into games, and I guess I was also a very early online citizen in a way. Mm-hmm. So in the days of America Online, mm-hmm. when it was still CDs in Germany, like it was impossible to get good internet. Of course.
Wait, America Online was in Germany?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's news to me.
They were one of the biggest ISPs in the early days. Yeah. But yeah.
Did it still say you got mail, or was it in German?
No, it said you got mail.
In English?
Yeah, in English. You got the whole thing on CD and like, but yeah, from the early days I played online or in LAN parties and quickly got into multiplayer games, of course, even though today I'm playing everything. So I don't mind playing single player games, multiplayer games. I'm also absolutely platform agnostic today. Mm-hmm. But back in the days I definitely played more on the PC. And even before I landed a job in the games industry, I would say like I was a hardcore FPS player. I played a lot of, from the early days of Quake, then into, Quake 1, Quake 2, Quake 3 Test, Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament, and going really, really hard into Counter-Strike. Yeah. So in the early 2000s, and in between played this obscure game called Kingpin: Life of Crime, which was a Quake engine game, playing in like a 1920s Chicago, gangs and all of that. That's how I really was my journey. And then in 2004, I started downloading the beta of World of Warcraft, and that put me on my journey to working actually in the industry in a way.
I would not think, knowing the world of Supercell and Brawl Stars, I think like, the game lead of that would have such rooted origins in like Quake, which is one of the earliest, most like morbid, grungy kind of like unpolished, but beautiful and, magnificent games. Like it's funny thinking about those two IPs in contrast, but I think a lot of that changed probably when World of Warcraft and the scope of games got even bigger. I know you had a history in probably just like going from a World of Warcraft player to like an actual like, guild leader. Is that kind of like
that was from the early days. So even in when I played Counter-Strike before, even before that, I was always like very engaged with like, I always had a knack of starting things and organizing groups and people. And so I had a little team, even like in the Counter-Strike days. I was very involved with the esports scene in Germany back then. Mm-hmm. So I volunteered as an admin for ESL. I was a staff writer for some of the biggest esports team in Germany. Back then there was like SK Gaming, which still exists, but Mortal Teamwork. So it was just really an interesting time. So I was always into organizing. And then when a colleague of mine lured me into World of Warcraft, he said, "Oh, there's this MMO coming out." I never had played an MMO before. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like an Ultima Online player or Dark Age of Camelot or any of those. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was just a new world. And so I literally worked during the day. I worked in an IT job back then. And in the nights, I played on US servers World of Warcraft.
Oh, that must have been bad.
That was pretty bad, yeah. So I was definitely sleep deprived, and I was pretty happy when it was released officially in Europe in 2005. I always thought I wanted to work with computers, went through like the education of and landed a job in that space, but ultimately figured out about myself that I'd really like to work with people more than with computers. So even though I learned C and learned how to manage Linux servers, all kind of interesting skills, but I really wanted to work with people more. So I was pretty bored out of my mind, and in a lunch break I applied for a job at Blizzard. So, and that was like, they needed German-speaking game masters in an office in the outskirts of Paris, and I was like, sure, why not? I mean, they're never gonna message me back anyway.
Like cold application?
Yeah, just literally wrote something in 15 minutes or so and sent it off. And
that's how it happens, right?
Yeah. And as the story goes, I was raiding one evening. We tried like, I think it was Ragnaros, so vanilla World of Warcraft, raid guild, 40 people trying Ragnaros, really intense. And I get a phone call in the middle of the raid, and it was Blizzard. And I told them, look, it's really nice that you're calling me, but I can't right now. We're trying Ragnaros. You have to understand. And I didn't even get the name, not a number or something, and said, call me back later, and hang up.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. And
you're hired.
And then I was
that's like a power move, and you didn't even know it.
And then I guess so. But then after the raid was over, it dawned on me like I cannot get in touch with them. They don't have a public facing phone number. I don't know who talked to me because I was so in the moment. And then it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to call me back again. So I was like, I thought this chance is gone.
No. You waited 2 weeks without knowing how to get back in touch with a recruiter. And
I was like, this is not happening.
For like essentially what was your entry point into the games industry?
That's true, yes.
What?
How did the raid go though?
Yeah.
We failed actually. It took us month and month to beat Ragnaros back then. So like, But then fast forward, they called me back. I got an interview. So I took a car ride with one of my best friends to Paris. I had no money really, so he sponsored the car ride. We drove to Paris in one day, slept in the car in a McDonald's parking lot on the other side of the street of the Blizzard office.
In Versailles?
In Vélizy, that was before Versailles. And then went to my interview, which took like 30 minutes. And then and then we literally went to the Eiffel Tower, checked out the Eiffel Tower, and drove back.
This is like this is like 2005.
Yeah, 2005. Wow. And then I started at Blizzard in October 2005 as a game master.
Game master?
Yes. So it's essentially customer support agent.
Yeah.
A little bit cooler version of that because you actually, you have an avatar in game. You had the special outfit, like a blue robe and all of that. You had a GM name.
Right.
You could show yourself to people in the game. And from there it really took off. I first had a team with 160 people and then ending up with 320 people. And in all of this, there was also the transition from me being German, working on a German team, only with German speakers. 90% of my days were German. to having an international team with like French, Polish, Russian, Spanish. And the English team was a hot mix of everyone and no one in a way. And that really, really opened my mind about like, oh, I cannot just take my German values and standards and just apply them on anyone around me. If you try to, I don't want to be an ass, but we Germans have a reputation for timeliness. And we, like, normally you're there 5 minutes before your work starts, right? That's the gold standard for Germans.
You were here 10 minutes before this
yeah,
interview.
I guess I was.
Interview started, yeah.
But for, let's say, French or Spanish, it's not like that. They have
culturally
they don't
different.
Have, culturally, like it's
longer,
very different.
Everything. Yeah.
So like, and in the beginning, it totally frustrated me that people wouldn't be there on time or 5 minutes before the time, because that was my expectation, right? Which I projected to people. But it was a great learning experience for me, and I think I became a much better manager over time. Also in the beginning, you know, like I had some leadership experience before going to Blizzard, but with very small teams, think like 5 to 10 people.
Well, and arguably in the game was where you managed the most amount of people.
Yeah, in the game, you know.
I was gonna say, like, meanwhile,
course.
You were playing probably as much World of Warcraft as you were like leading teams internally, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I would really make the statement that World of Warcraft helped me to become a better leader, because you're leading a group of people who volunteer to do that job. You don't have like real authority over them, right?
Financial incentive.
No financial incentive, no nothing.
No benefits.
And motivating people to do what you think is right. I think that helped me a lot. But yeah, like I think over time I grew from, in the beginning, being a micromanager, being the typical, like, you know, I was like meticulous about checking everyone's stats every day and all of that, and giving them feedback every day about their performance. And then when I had a team of 50 plus people, it really, like, that didn't work anymore, right? I tried actually in the beginning, but it stressed me out. It stressed the people out I worked with. The managers which reported to me, they thought I didn't trust them. So it was really not going well. And it took me like a moment of self-reflection to really like, oh, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I would hate myself being my boss. And so I slowly started transitioning away from that.
Now, given that you were in player support, obviously you developed tremendous empathy for the player base, and World of Warcraft was one of the very early global games, right? And given the fact that you work with so many people from so many different countries, are there things that you learned about the similarities and differences between players around the world?
To be honest, in World of Warcraft, it was like surprisingly most of the players in Europe we had, because we supported the players in Europe. So you had European mainland and Russia. And I would argue that most of the things there's more similarities than differences. People are really like, had the same needs, got frustrated about the same things. There was, of course, a lot of people played on English-speaking servers. So the community was one in a way. Yeah, there were some German servers and some Spanish servers and French servers, but what happened there was pretty much the same. I think there was a bigger difference between people who played, for example, on PvP servers versus people who played on role-playing servers. On role-playing servers, people got really upset with weird names, for example. You know, like, while on PvP servers, people couldn't care less. The focus was very different. I think there were, of course, when we entered Russia, there were, of course, some interesting things going on, because, of course, people try to start circumventing, you know, the price tag of the European version and all of that. But yeah, that's maybe the only thing.
That was the responsibility of customer support at a game of that size and scale. I mean, it's like, it's everything. It's not just, you know, bug squashing or feature requesting. It's like fraud. It's localization. It's like a lot of different things are baked into a game of that scope. But, you know, I've always taken you as like a player first kind of, you know, individual. And when I think about game lead now, so like actually transitioning to, you know, the legacy I would say you've built so far at Supercell, growing from player support, even in like community in your earliest time there, now to becoming a game lead. I mean, I don't really know what a game lead is in the definition of Supercell. Like, if I didn't see that on LinkedIn, I would be like, all right, you're esports director, you are YouTube, personality, community lead, game director, finance. There's like so much there's so much alchemy in the title of game lead. And I expect that wasn't easy to come in and go from kind of a support community role into a leadership position at the company.
The whole transition. I mean, I started talking to Supercell early 2014, and at that point I was a little bit bored with my job at Blizzard. I had done the job at that moment for 4 or 5 years, and I could have seen a promotion at Blizzard in my near future, but that wouldn't have so much changed what I was doing back then, because I already had a huge team, and there was no huger team or nothing else to learn there for me in my head. So I contemplated, like, should I try to get a job in Irvine in the headquarters? But then, as funny as it sounds, I wasn't really excited about moving to the US. So I'm really very European in a way. But then I started talking with Supercell, and by total accident, like one of the managers reporting to me, he and I in our weekly one-on-ones always talked about different games than Blizzard games, and he had introduced me to Boom Beach. And that was my first contact with Supercell games. It wasn't Clash of Clans or Heyday, it was Boom. And so anyway, when I joined Supercell, I joined as that my outside facing title was Global Head of Player Support. So they wanted someone to transition a mostly in-house team to a global organization. And Ilka and Janne, Ilka our CEO, Janne our CFO, COO back then, they gave me total freedom on how I wanted to do this. So I helped the team to build a huge outsourcing organization with, at peak over 2,000 support agents around the globe. But as my life at Supercell went on, Jan, who had a lot on his table, he started offloading other things on me. So first, like, it started with localization, then anti-fraud and player safety. And eventually I started talking about that I think it would benefit our community team if there would be someone who is bringing them together. Because before that, our community managers were like essentially isolated in the different game teams, and they didn't have a real reason to talk together or even agree on a company strategy and community management. So I complained about it with leadership, and then they said, "Okay, are you going to fix it?" And
which is what leadership usually does.
Fashion.
Yeah,
and that is very, very Supercell there. So I started also becoming the lead of the community team, which was super controversial at that point because they didn't necessarily want to lead even back then. But yeah, then I worked with the team and really just talking more to each other, like push them maybe a little bit out of their comfort zone, and like with developer videos and stuff like that. But yeah, so as time went on, we had a few games, in soft launches, killed a few games. And at that point, I had gone through 2 games being in soft launch but got killed, and I was pretty sad about them being killed. One was Spooky Pop, which really like a highly unsuccessful action puzzle game, and the other one Smashland. And
can you say if those were in the Clash universe or not, or were they?
No, they were not. They were both their own IP. But I played both of them from the beginning, got really engaged, and then they got killed, and I was heartbroken. And for me, it was like, okay, the next new game from Supercell, when it goes to soft launch, I'm not gonna play. and that was then Clash Royale was, of course, a super quick thing. It went into soft launch I think in January, and in March it went global.
Wow, that was that quick.
Yeah, it was super fast. The numbers were very clear as well. But yeah, then when Brawl soft launch, I was like, no, I'm gonna stay away from this. It's like
can't have your heart broken a third time.
I couldn't. I was like, I can't take it. I let other people do that job. I'm just sitting in the background, and I was also distracted at that point. Unlike a lot of my colleagues who jumped on Clash Royale when it was released, almost at the same time, Blizzard released Overwatch. And with my background of FPS, I was highly attracted to
Blizzard.
Overwatch. I played 700 hours of Overwatch in the friends and family beta of Overwatch.
No, you did
700 hours.
Like, were the servers even on for that long?
yeah, they were on for quite some time.
You're like every single hour the beta was launched.
My spouse and I, we didn't have computers back then, and she's also a former Blizzard. And then in the beginning, she really wanted to play Overwatch, so I bought a gaming laptop for her, and was like, "Here's a gaming laptop for your birthday, so you can play Overwatch beta." And she's like, "Cool." And then beta came out, she downloaded, she started playing, and I got so jealous that I went back to the shop, bought exactly the same laptop for myself. And we were both on the dining table playing
I'm thinking,
Overwatch.
wait, you went from a raid, like a raid leader to not having a computer at some point?
Yeah, when we moved to Finland, we just, like, in the beginning, there was like, we were thinking very grown up in a way.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, so we have, the living room, the master bedroom, and the other room is totally like a guest room. And so we made it as a guest room. We even put the name of like one of our friends on the door and stuff like that. And and then that lasted about 3 months.
Yeah, I'm like, impossible. You can't not have some setup.
It lasted about 3 months. Then we ripped out everything in that room, put 2 desks and into actual PCs. So anyway, I played Overwatch a lot. So that also, like, for 2 years, my road to Grandmaster was like my focus.
Oh, you got back into it then?
Yeah, I played it hardcore. Like working at Supercell every day and then going home and playing 4 hours of Overwatch during the week every evening.
You're my hero.
So you can say I'm a little bit of a gamer, I guess.
Wait, I want to, like, you said something, you both commented, because you both, spent a considerable amount of time at Supercell. And I've had the pleasure of speaking, like, in other pods to folks at Zynga. And, it seemed like the way that the company culture feels like there's a specific magic kind of sauce, or there's like some type of, like, whether it's cultural or there's some like philosophy to game making or building a company. Like, is there any easy way for either of you to, like, describe what that is? I mean, you're still there, and the magic is still kind of like, probably in your bones at some point. But I'm curious to, like, coming from a Blizzard, which feels more like, I don't want to misspeak, but say like more of a traditional, like, they built, a big games company, and then to go from France to Finland, what was kind of like, and especially, also, Doug, like, seeing games in the Supercell lens, like, what is that? What does that feel like?
I mean, there are 2 characteristics or cultural tenets that are really important. There are several, but independence and responsibility are really 2 of the core kind of values for Supercell. And I mean, it ties into this notion of a cell where the game teams basically control their own destiny. They're also responsible for the results ultimately, right? So that's a lot of responsibility to put on the team. But, when we worked on Brawl, for instance, we made all the decisions as a team, right? And that's something that I think is very unique in games and also in business in general.
Mm. And no shoes.
No shoes.
It's very disarming not to wear shoes in the office.
Well, because I think it's one thing, though, to say, like, independence and responsibility, and it's like that can be in any, company mantra, like, would like to strive for that. But like, what pushes that behavior?
We don't really have those mantras on the walls like other companies do.
Yeah.
I think the key difference, and it's something very Finnish in a way. The Finnish society is built around trust. You're going to the restaurant, and the coat rack will be in the entrance of the restaurant, and people will hang their coats there, the bags, everything, and then they go somewhere else to their table, and they don't have to be afraid that anyone will take their jacket
on the way out. Yeah.
On the way out. So it's like, it's a highly trust-based society, and that makes a lot of things very easy and very functional. You're losing your wallet, there's a 90% chance that you will get it back with the money in it. And so that is very distinctively Finnish in a way, and that has surely also found its way into the company, and so, like, we're still like 50% Finnish or so, employee wise, in Helsinki at least, and this trust as a currency is really, like, I would say, is fueling all of that, or that trusting the teams to make the right calls for not only the game but for the players, for the company. And personally, like, it was a huge change for me, going from Blizzard is not an outlier when it comes to how they operate, right? It's a traditional company with traditional hierarchy and structure. So there's nothing bad or wrong with that. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
While at Supercell, it's really like it has been showed by Ilka a few times, but it's almost like a reverse pyramid. So the CEO serves the rest of the company, is enabling things.
He said it a few times. He's like, and I always like to say this, he's like the least important person in the room.
Yeah,
Yes,
like his line,
yes.
he wants to be the least powerful CEO in the
Yes.
world.
Mm.
Yeah.
And to a degree that I would argue that's true.
Hmm.
I mean, he is like spiritually and philosophically speaking, I think he has a lot of impact on the people in the company. But when it comes to the actual execution of what we do, then that is almost exclusively the teams. There's no, like in other companies, there's like, oh, we need to make this kind of game with this kind of IP. That's not happening at Supercell. It's all like the team's shape. The teams get green lighted, but then what the teams do is up to them. So they have total independence. And sometimes that's mistaken for individual independence.
Right.
Which is not the same. It's not like you as an individual. We had, like, I guess Valve had that model at a point where every individual just could do whatever they wanted.
They could pick up, move the desk. I literally think the desk had wheels on it, right?
That was part of their employee manual at that point, or whatever it was called, the employee handbook. And that's not how Supercell operates. So it's the teams decide, right? But you cannot just say, oh, I'm done with this game. I'm going over there now. Mm-hmm. It's not how it's happening. So it's really like teams are empowered to do the right things. We are empowered to, as an individual, nobody will tell you this is how you have to do things. So you have a lot of individual freedom in the execution on your specific job. So yeah, trust. Everything runs on trust in Supercell, I would say.
Frank, if teams decide, how as a game lead do you make sure the right decisions are made?
I think my job is not to make sure that the right decisions are made, but my job is to make sure that a decision is made. So it's one of these other things at Supercell, which, the press at some point misrepresented that to a degree, that we are like drinking champagne to celebrate failure, which is really not the case. We do drink champagne when there's failure, but we are celebrating
and McDonald's when there's success.
That's a different story, yeah. but it's like we are really celebrating the learnings from that failure. It's like we even at some point had these champagne bottles with a label on it. We called it learning champagne, and whenever we drank one of those, we wrote on the bottle, why are we drinking this? What are we learning right now?
No shit.
So it's like people are super humble about this as well, about their own individual shortcomings or failures as a team to take action or to do something. And I guess Ilka said that at some point during a talk at Slush. Something that's really stuck a note with me. But he talked about that you can do everything right and still fail. Because like failing or succeeding is not necessarily only down to you. It's totally circumstantial. You need to be a little bit lucky. Having the right product in the right moment. If you're too soon, nobody might pick it up. If you're too late, there might be competitors which own that space. So it's really like luck is a real thing, and Ilka will talk about that a lot, and I fully agree. Sometimes you need to get lucky. But at the end of the day, when it's about decision making, I think there's nothing worse than not making a decision. Even if you don't know. And I guess that's where someone like me comes in, where most of the time game leads in Supercell are not calling the shots. We might have a vision for the game. We might have an idea what we'd like to do, but we really try to empower the team to make the decisions and to drive things forward. It's not very kumbaya and we're sitting in a circle and singing and coming up together with like, everyone is like, yes, consensus.
I don't know. Doug's told me about your offsite sometimes.
Yeah, that might happen.
No comment.
But out of context, maybe. So far, it's really about, like, does someone in the team have a strong conviction we should do something?
Yeah.
Or what do we know what doesn't work today, and how do we want to fix it? And then we look at what are different opportunities, different solutions. And sometimes it happens, of course, that there's multiple options and the team cannot decide between A and B. And in those moments, you need a tiebreaker, and that is a game lead. I mean, the game lead is also ultimately responsible for the games, for the financial outcome, and the people in the team. So that is like, but that doesn't, so it doesn't almost matter what to go back to your earlier question, what skill set a game lead has, as long as they care about people, as long as they care about the game. Those are the really two most important things. And a lot of things can be delegated within that group as well, right? The business responsibility, the design responsibility for certain features. But yeah, I really believe it's super important that you have someone, that you're not twiddling your thumbs like, oh, we cannot decide A or B. Let's not do anything. That's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go with something, accepting that maybe there's a 50-50 chance that it won't work.
Mm.
But then you learn something. You learn something, you take that learning and you apply it in your future thinking. And you keep doing that, and you be like, we are super diligent about this. And we just keep doing that, and we keep living it very publicly within the company, not only within the individual game teams. We go to the whole company and tell them, we did this, it worked. And this is what we learned. Or we did this, it did not work.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we learned. So that everyone knows this is like, yeah, these are the learnings. We're trying to have learning sharing a lot. And on a smaller base, for example, in Brawl Stars team, what we started to establish like maybe a year ago, so maybe 2 years by now, is that every update cycle, our update cycles are roughly 2 months. And after every cycle, once we've shipped
That's fast.
Well,
I'm like, you shouldn't be on the show right now.
we're in the middle of an update cycle, of course, even though it doesn't look like I am. After an update cycle is done, once we've shipped the update, a week after or so, we have like a retro on what went well, what didn't go well.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's always nice to talk about the things which go well, but it's much more important to talk about the things that don't go well. And then to go through these, see, are there patterns? Is there something we can fix? What could be the action items? And we're discussing as a team, put them in writing, write it down, and try to address it in the next update cycle. And since we're doing that every 2 months, you almost start seeing like trends. You're like, oh, there's a bunch of people in the team last update cycle which got stressed by this thing. We try to address it. Now it's half of them being stressed. So how do we get that to a place where nobody's stressed? What do we need to do? What are the potential actions we can take as a team? So I think iteration is super important for us, and also understanding that as teams, but also as a company and our games, since our games they're not static. It's not we ship a product, here's your disc, and then bye forever. It's a living, breathing object that's constantly changing, adapting, adjusting. And I'm really super, it's like, it's something you got to embrace to a degree. So even if you're making a mistake, that's not something you cannot fix, because it's just, worst case, it doesn't work. 2 months later, we have a fix.
It's so much harder to do. It's like easier to set like the level of trust you need in your teams to have the humility to even write down failures. Like no one, I don't feel like it's human in typical organization, maybe a Western organization, to show your dirt. Like most people want to like, here's the good stuff, here's the good stuff, but it's a lot harder in practice to have to sit there and look at your boss or a lead and be like, here, like we messed up, or this like didn't work. But I do agree. I think feedback, like intense feedback loops, and the bottoms up approach to give like the liberty to anyone working on a project the ability to speak up. It's so much. I feel like it's so much easier said than done. But hats off to like creating a culture that has kind of taken that and ran with it.
It's in my head. It's really like, it's one of these things where I'm personally hyper pragmatic. I'm pragmatic and practical. I'm not a big philosopher, and I'm getting to a degree impatient when we talk too much about philosophy in the company. And of course, I understand that it's necessary for some people. But for me personally, I will always be the person in the room who's saying, how? So now we talked about the philosophy and how we feel about things. How do we put that in practical steps and action? So I'm an action guy. And for me personally, that means that very often it's about like just doing things. And it sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but in my experience, it's really so much more often is like the absence of action is the problem. Because you can fix anything the moment you start taking action. You feel that nobody in the company understands what your team is doing. Oh, there's an easy fix. Start talking about it.
Yeah, start talking about it. Do something
like,
about it. Yeah.
Like every Friday in Supercell, we have this staff meeting, like a town hall. It's a really casual get together of everyone in a room, and teams can present what they're working on right now. And we have a snack, a beer or whatever. So very, very casual, nice setting, and it's kind of the send-off in the weekend for most people. And those are the meetings where we share the learnings, where we talk about what works, what doesn't work, what's the new stuff we're working on, the cool and exciting things, which I think is an incredible tool for us, which we're constantly using. And if you think nobody knows what your team is doing, then that's the place to go. But then you're not going there once and expect, oh, I did it once now, everyone must know what we're doing. It's really like a, communication only works when it's being repeated. So you need to keep talking about it. You need to keep mentioning to everyone, like, this is what we're working on. This is what we're doing. This is why we're here. This is what we're trying to achieve. But it's all about just doing. It's not about speculating, building philosophy around things. Sometimes it's just about action.
Yeah, and I think in modern games, the community is so vocal that you have to be self-reflective, right? You have to constantly be learning from feedback from the community and, being self-critical and making things better. And it's all about action. It's all about trying things and adapting to the feedback. And I think that's something that Supercell does very, very well and has for a very long time, which I think really helped in the early days as the teams, the company, and the games grew.
I think from a community perspective, you either take the negativity and call it out and recognize it and take action upon it. I feel, I don't know if this is like from the outside looking in, like the way that Supercell has treated the community, has spoken with the community, has hired community leads, community managers, bakes community, like fan art videos, whatever it might be, into the games itself to create like a actual, platform for not just your voice, but the voices of so many others. I feel that is, that gives the players a lot of trust too, and both trust in you, but it shows back that you trust them and like the things that they're saying and doing. And it's interesting, we talked to a few game leads, and some come from like a programming background, some come from, they're more technical or more visionary. I like talking with you, that has kind of come from the customer experience, the player experience, like building communities within the company itself. And what I heard was that at points Brawl Stars was kind of like in a place where it might not have seen the light of day. And in soft launch, I think I was reading it was in soft launch for like over a year, right? I was like in soft launch for like 500 days or something like something crazy like that. Or maybe not crazy in your guys' sense, but given your pragmatism, like you're looking at the data, you're looking at the test markets, you're looking at how things are going. And did you expect when it actually did go into full launch, or if you can touch on any of the story about like what that moment in time was where you're like, oh no, I'm losing the third game that I didn't want to play, and now it's like actually picking up traction. Like,
so I touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
So when was it? Maybe I churned from Overwatch maybe in January, February 2018.
And that's when the game got good.
And that's coincided with Brawl Stars going from portrait to landscape.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which was very controversial at the time with the community.
I can't imagine the game being portrait.
Highly controversial.
Really?
Tap to move and everything included. So, but one of the developers in the game team, he had the strong conviction that for Brawl Stars to fly, it needs to be landscape, dual stick. And so actually that developer specifically, he's a former game lead of Clash of Clans, Tommy. And so he spent a weekend and he transitioned Brawl Stars from portrait to landscape, just for internal playables. And then the team decided to give it a shot. And at that moment, I jumped on it as well. Like, okay, now I'm playing it. And I started playing it, and I got really into it. We have these within the company, we're tracking all the data, and Super Science could see like how fast are they gaining trophies. And I pride myself to say that I was like had the steepest hockey stick of a curve in gaining trophies. I was playing, really getting into it. And then at that point, the game was soft launch in some typical countries like Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the Nordics, and on iOS only. And we arrived in May 2018. And in one of the Friday updates, the game team was talking about that they had done some errors in the calculation of the monetization up-down. And they figured out that the game was only like half where it needs to be a success in our eyes. And it was a super sad moment. Everyone in the company was really down. Oh, we're going to kill another game. It felt like this. It wasn't said out loud, right? But it was the emotional response. And I was sad like everyone else, but I also got really angry because I just had really started engaging with the game so much. And I really believed in it. I was like, no, this is a mistake. This game cannot die.
And you're like the game lead at like you're the
at that point I was like the PX lead. So I was not involved with the game team. I had talked to many people in the game team at that point, but I just had a strong conviction. It's a mistake to kill this game.
Did you put more than 700 hours into Brawl Stars beta?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. It's like, because I only started.
I've seen a pattern here.
I might have. But at that point, I went out from the Friday meeting, had a talk with my team, which everyone in the team had played Brawl Stars at that point. And in the team as well, we were all like, no, it's a bad idea to kill this. So I wrote down like 15 things I would do as someone who never worked on a game. And I sent it to the game lead, Jon. And he was like, oh, it's really cool that you're thinking about all of this. We're always also thinking about some of these things. You should also have a chat with Ilka. And I tried to get time with Ilka in the calendar the next week. Ilka's a very busy guy, so I got 15 minutes.
Oh, you found time.
Yeah, he found time. And he had no clue what, the PX lead wants to talk about Brawl. Okay. So I had my meeting with him then the next week, and the meeting ended up lasting like 2 hours. And we had a really good discussion. I showed him like, I don't think we've looked at this from all angles. And he would later tell the story that he felt I was so intense that I would at any moment jump over the table to punch him. I might have been a little bit intense. And anyway, so, and then he agreed with many of the things. He agreed that there might be things the team hasn't considered. But he and Jon then worked together on doing a few things. And that was releasing the game on Android and soft launching in some other markets in Asia specifically. And this is to just the art style fly in Asia. And Android, does the virality work better once everyone can play? In a game which is best played with 3 people, if you're the guy with an iOS device and your 2 friends have an Android device, and you download the game and you can't play it with them, it's dead. So, and then, so there was an update in May, and in July is where in Finland everyone drops the pen and goes on vacation. So July is a dead month in Finland. A lot of Finnish people will go on vacation for 4 weeks, literally. And there have been stories about, Heyday being released globally just before people go on vacation and stuff like that. So I went on a 3 or 4 week break to Canada, visited a good friend of mine, and came back in early August. And on the first day I was back in August in the office, Ilka dragged me in a room and said, "Hey, Jon and I had a talk. We would like you to become the game lead for Brawl Stars."
Shut up. That is awesome.
And I was like, okay, I don't quite understand why. But then he talked with me about it. So it was a mix of like, I had a proven track record that I'm able to build teams.
Mm-hmm.
I have a business sense. On top of that, I have the gamer cred. So the the guys in the game team really feel like Frank is a gamer. He's actually playing the game. He really, has some ideas. And I made it conditional that I wanted to, ultimately what I did is like I didn't come up with exclusively new ideas or anything like that. I almost summarized what I had heard from the guys in the team and tried to really bring out their vision a little bit more. But then I sat down with the team and said, look, this is what I think we should do. And if you guys agree, I will become your lead. And that's what happened. And Jon stepped down. He was the game lead before, but he stepped down to be just a game designer and a programmer in the team and focus on what he's really good at, making the game. And I helped then growing the team, building the vision around. And my first job there was, should we go global or not? Which is, of course, like it could have, there was a chance that I'm coming in for a month and then make the decision to kill the game. And, that was a possibility. But what I found is that it's one of these things where data can only tell you so much. The data scientist in the team back then, he looked at all our benchmarks from 2012, from 2016, Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, Heyday, Boom Beach in 2014, and he compared the data 1-to-1 with where Brawl was at, and it didn't look great. There was like clear shortcomings compared to these games. And so he said, look, we're going to launch this game. It's going to go to this DAU, and then it starts going to drop, and, it will fizzle out down there somewhere. And that wasn't inspiring for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the people on the team were really hyped about the game. They really believed this can fly. And I believed so too. And
structurally, were there any differences in the kind of game that it was that led the data to be that far off from like what the benchmark?
Sure, it's the first time we have a real-time PvP face-to-face game. Yeah. It's like Clash Royale was, of course, similar, but not exactly the same. Not team-based either.
Mm-hmm. It's also a brand new IP too.
Brand new IP. Lots of things we just didn't know. And what I did is really I tried to show that there's not only the pessimistic view in the data, but there's also like these other possibilities, what might happen. And when we ended up with making the launch decision, that was end of August. We really we knew it was likely not be Frank's optimistic scenario, likely also not data scientist pessimistic scenario, but it would be somewhere in between. We made some compromises on the marketing launch budget to justify for that, build a better structure in place, and how we can quickly react to if we see something works or doesn't work, to make sure that we can quickly follow up.
I think that's actually a really important point because, when you're launching a new game, you don't know how it's going to perform. So we had to build a very flexible budget and system to try to figure out how to adapt, both to, in a downside scenario, if we have to scale back, we could, but also in an upside scenario, how do we really lean in? And if, different regions are performing better, then we'll want to lean in even more. Like, Korea, for instance, after Brawl launched, was doing really well. So we leaned into the Korean market. Mm-hmm. And I think that was something that really helped fuel the game in the early days.
Mm.
I think that's one of these interesting things because traditionally we soft launch in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Nordics. And then we added, for example, Malaysia. What all of that doesn't tell you is there's the unknowns. Would the game maybe fly in a country I don't have on my radar right now? Yeah. Supercell always has been super successful in North America. But when we actually launched Brawl to the global audience, it became quickly the biggest game we ever had in South Korea. It became the biggest game we ever had in Russia, Poland, Israel, Turkey. Markets where our footprint was way smaller before. So, and the data would never have showed us this.
Mm.
So I'm almost like data should never be the decision maker. It can inform your decision making. But if you have a strong conviction that that you see something in this product and you see there's some positive elements there, then just balancing out that risk by making smarter decisions in marketing spend and how you structure the team and having a plan B if something goes wrong. I think it's much more powerful than saying, "Oh, we kill this game."
So where did it end between Frank's optimism and data science's pessimism?
Is
this a stupid question? Was it Frank's optimism that won out?
We quickly got greenlighted for marketing, but
okay.
I guess it's
it went fairly well.
And the rest is history, right? Because I was looking at some of the stats, and it was Supercell's $3 billion franchise.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I like to think about it like in terms of like music. Sometimes there's a band, first album, breakout hit, everyone loves it, hard to follow it up, hard to have a sophomore album. And I mean, this isn't to disparage all the other great games in the Supercell family, but like I think to the global consumer's mind, there was for me it was like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, and then Brawl, and by revenue standards, like the third game to break that to break that mark. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. And the story of finding 15 minutes that turns into 2 hours to going on July break to coming back, and then you're like, wait, what? That's a responsibility that I can take on, is a pretty remarkable journey to how that game came to be.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I had a lot to learn. Like when I joined the team, like of course my safe space was building a team, enabling people, removing obstacles. I'm by definition I'm a borderline OCD structural fanatic, so I really like my spreadsheets and my organizational items, and that all helped a lot. It's almost like I would argue most Germans by default would make great producers, because it's so baked into our DNA to be organized and structured.
How many Chrome tabs do you think you have open on a
browser? Not many, actually.
Yeah, okay.
I also like to keep my desktop clean. But what I had to learn is like all the like, what does a client programmer do? What does a server engineer do? How is their work different? How does it work in the context of our engine? What do different artists do? Before I joined the Brawl team, I always had heard about this Supercellers generalist who can do everything. And once I became the game lead, I was like, oh, that's maybe not true, not to the same degree at least. A good 3D artist might not be necessarily a good 2D artist or a great UI guy. But so I just had to learn a lot and maybe, try to stay afloat a little bit more than a more seasoned veteran developer would have done. But how it ended up is that I literally, like, as you said, from social media, it can look almost schizophrenic sometimes what my role is. It's there's the mix between I'm surely to a degree. Many people think I'm a community manager. If you ask our players, like I will hear that once a week that Frank the community manager, which I'm totally fine with. So community, like this community focus had been one of the pillars I had pitched to the team very early on, together with Ryan Leighton, who's now the community lead. But he was back then the community manager on Brawl, and he and I we had a really good plan of execution. We wanted to do things differently as well as previous games in Supercell. I believe a little bit before Brawl, one of the things I was always a bit afraid of is that people from the outside look at Supercell as this big corporation. Yeah, which is not true. It's not how we work. It's not the size we have. We're a really small company still, and my hope was that with the developer videos, etc., we can break through that and show, hey, we are actually just humans. So from the beginning, I made it to the horror of Ryan, who hated the idea. I was like, I'm gonna be on Twitter and Reddit as Frank, and I'm gonna talk not in Supercell's voice or in Brawl Stars' voice. I'm gonna be me.
Yeah.
And which of course scared the hell out of him, but eventually he came to tolerate me. He also didn't have a real choice. Poor guy. Sorry, Ryan, if you're watching this.
Shout out Ryan. I love Ryan.
But he also was super open-minded about doing a bunch of other things, like not having a forum. We went Reddit first. Like having those dev videos, having many people from the dev team on Twitter, on Reddit. Those are all like little pillars, like having the game lead showing up in Brawl Talks. All of that is really good for the community, especially when something goes wrong as well.
Yeah.
We have an update, there's bugs. as a game team, so as the official accounts, but also the individuals, we will be very quickly saying, "Oh, that this went wrong. Sorry, we're gonna fix it."
There's more of a chance they're refreshing your account than the Brawl Stars account too. Like on Twitter, you know, like if something happens, there's like,
And I think what was really exciting was that ethos was in there from the beginning. Like pre-launch, everyone was aligned that this game was going to be very community centric, and I think that permeated everything we did. The marketing, like the IP development, was in part a conversation with the community, right?
The global launch day, I was there in Finland. We talked about this last night. It was like kind of a magical moment. I mean, the big countdown clock was going. Most of the Supercell creator community was there in the flesh.
The content creators pushing the button.
Pushing the button.
We had different content creators from different regions launching the game in their regions.
Seeing the heat map in real time, right?
Correct,
like of everything.
The lock-ins.
I mean, literally from the launch. They were there, like literally there.
Even when it goes to what Doug touched on the IP building of Brawl, there's the fact that we always try to keep the IP open enough and loose enough so that the community has space to express themselves and come up with stories. I'll give you a very concrete example, like something we've never had planned. But there's two characters in the game. One is called Piper, one is called Rico.
Yep.
Rico is a robot, a gumball machine robot. And Piper is very much human, very much your Texas Belle. And the community, for some reason, started to ship them. Which for us was like, what? But we really didn't deny it.
Can you explain ship them for the audience?
Well, yeah. Sorry if you're listening to that. So for the fans made them a couple. Okay.
See, I put that together, but then I was, like in my head I was like gumball machine and human. I was like, no, he doesn't mean like actually make them a couple.
Yeah, yep. but that happened.
Like and romantically.
The community got really, really excited about these two characters being romantically involved. But it's of course something we never at no point at that point had even hinted at. So really, like, no clue how that actually started. It just became a thing. But then Valentine's 2021 Valentine's Day, we had an animation which was called Rico in Love.
I saw that.
I think the official name's My Sweet Brawlentine.
My Sweet Brawlentine, yeah.
That was the name we had before we launched on Valentine's
So it tells
Day.
the story of Rico being in love with a vending machine. And
Piper being Rico in love with a vending machine.
Yeah, right. Rico very much in love with the vending machine. So he and the vending machine spend a lot of time together, you know, go to having a romantic bath in a spa. You know, just spending, like, having a picnic together.
In his mind.
Well, who knows? And so it's a really cute story. You know, it's like the music was
Boys to Men, of course, as you have in romantic videos. Yes.
So it was just a great story. Unfortunately, at some point, Frank, another Brawl Stars character, goes not related to me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty, like 50% sure. He's going to the vending machine and is trying to buy something from the vending machine, but it doesn't fall down. So he cannot, everyone can relate, I guess.
Yep.
So he cannot pick up his goodies. So he's starting to smash the vending machine and breaks it.
Who Rico is in love with.
Who Rico's in love with. Yeah. So Rico finds the broken vending machine. It's, of course, totally heartbroken. And then Piper is arriving and giving him a hand and lifting him up. So that's the only connection we ever made. But this was inspired by the community.
So you don't know where it came from, but you took the story and you built the world around it.
Yes, absolutely. So, and we just, in the latest update, we introduced masteries for every brawler. And the final reward for masteries is a title you can unlock on a per brawler base and then utilize for your account.
This is a really interesting, this is, I like where this came from too. Like you should. We were talking about
we can but TLDR is Rico's title is the lover, you know, so we keep playing with this
even 2 years later almost, right? Like ever since that kind of spawned from Valentine's Day 2021, February 2021, I always forget when Valentine's Day is. 2 years later you can still get a mastery title that goes back to that.
And we try to keep tapping into these elements as well.
Fantastic. Well, the YouTube channel's like 10 million plus subscribers at this point. most of the
13 or so.
Okay, a few more million. The like each and every animation almost seems to be getting better. The Brawl Talks broke most records by live premiere standards. I think almost 1 million viewers on
almost
on
1 million concurrents for YouTube Premiere. It's not bad
for a 2-minute developer update. I mean, I don't know anyone else who's any other studio that's even come close to that amount of excitement for a developer update.
Look, like the inspiration when I started to think about developer videos in general, even before Brawl, my gold standard was what Blizzard was doing. Because in Overwatch, like they had these developer updates, and I always thought they were really well done, pretty personable, not too scripted, and it felt pretty good. But those got like, hundreds of thousands of views, and that was kind of my horizon. But I think the top Brawl Talk has like 35 million views or something. It's like so pretty intense numbers. And I remember when we got the first Brawl Talk with like 1 million likes, where like it just really took off, and it almost became its own medium. And the community is really, it's this point where the community can really rally around and get really excited around. But yeah, I think we were one of the first teams utilizing Premiere
and a custom countdown premiere for that. And I mean, as a marketer, that's like a dream. You were always kind of doing like weird community-driven content pieces, like the radio station, Star Park. I mean, I don't know what you guys were taking when you developed Star Park, because that thing got weird very quick.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's like
but
you guys in the forest with something in your system, but that's what I was talking about before. Like it felt like the risk taking and the creative, or even the way it seems so obvious. Like talk to your community, do developer updates, be on Twitter. It's like, but you not only did that, but took it in kind of like a playful, crazy, not afraid to like bring into the picture a theme park that goes haywire. Like I don't get it from the outside, but it works and I love it.
I think part of that too is that idea of trusting the community. Like the way we announce the world, like that the world is set in a theme park, an abandoned theme park. We could have just, Paul, who was the artist at the time, could have just announced it on Twitter and let everyone know. But no, we want to do something with the community. And we trusted they would figure out the clues that we dropped. And so the very first clue that we dropped was a radio on the side of one of the levels in the game itself had a blinking light. And that blinking light was Morse code. It took the community a little while to figure out that it was Morse code, but then they realized it was WKBRL. And then they had to figure out, what does that mean? Sounds like a radio station.
How long did it take for them to figure that? I would never have thought that a blinking light.
I think it was only a few weeks. And then they figured out there was a YouTube channel that was streaming more clues. It was youtube.com/WKBRL.
A private channel.
Yeah.
A private channel which did not show up in
Doesn't that scare the shit out of you of how smart like...
It's amazing.
It's insane how quickly an audience can figure it out. Almost like...
It was as far as like the moment we realized that our community starts to... Like now they're analyzing every single marketing art piece dropped on our social media. They're obsessively, so I might add, like going into every detail. What does it mean? Why is there a box there? We have never seen a box like that. Is that a new thing? So it's like,
are you intentionally like, is there stuff that you think the community has still to find?
Of course.
You think so?
Course. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But yeah, like I think the Morse code was the first time we did it, but also as part of that whole campaign, we had, for example, one of the characters called 8-Bit. He's a sentient arcade machine. As crazy as that sounds. And
you have a gumball machine and a sentient arcade machine.
Yeah, we do have a sentient arcade machine. So in game, when you were on the character select screen, on his screen, his face, which is a screen, would glitch. And if you would tap it 8 times, 8-bit, then a pop-up would open. And in that pop-up, you would play through the memory of the arcade machine. It would be like, think jump and run, side scroller, shoot 'em up. And so you could play through the story, like his memories
It's a game within a game.
A game within a game, and it had like even like hidden secrets. You could pretty quickly go to the regular end, but then it would have these hidden secrets you could explore within that game even.
Who is the person clicking it 8 times? That's like what I'm always like, who figured that out?
It was millions of people.
Millions of people.
Yeah. In parallel, it was figured out within
Yeah.
seconds of it being released.
Yes. And we all triggered that via live ops. So it's like it didn't require an update or anything. We had prepared for this. And so it was just for us a switch of a button essentially to turn it on. But yeah, people are opening the character screen so often. So like, of course, if you just go to the screen and select the brawler, you won't even see that.
Right.
But yeah, that happened. And then, yeah, the investor video, which we also released in a very weird way. You know, in the middle of a Brawl Talk started glitching. The community didn't see this coming at all.
I didn't see it coming.
Nobody could see it coming. And then you had this slightly obscure Japanese gentleman talking to his investors of Star Park. And
things start just like going weird though. It's not even glitching.
Yeah,
it's like psychedelic.
It was the backstory of this park falling apart,
Yeah.
and the investor is pitching.
While he's pitching.
Yeah, the guy is pitching for investors in the park itself, and it was embedded in the middle of a Brawl Talk. But to your point about Brawl Talk, we felt like that was what the community would be watching, and that was the best way.
That's how you find them.
Rather than posting this separately somewhere else, let's actually embed it together.
Right.
And that was the payoff of this, you know, entire 6-month, you know, breadcrumbed story that we were trying to tell with the community and integrating them into the storytelling.
Oh man, I've so many questions about that in general, but the I think you posted something on Twitter about kind of breaking down kind of how hard it is actually to build a game, or just like and this kind of goes like probably to why Ryan gets scared when eventually you created your own Twitter. But you know, I thought it was a very honest take into what is required to finance like a team, how to think about where like your profits go right back into the next, you know, user acquisition play. Is there any do you ever feel that you're still at even though Supercell could be seen from the outside as being a big company, you still feel that you a lot of what you deal with is very small decisions? Do you still feel like you're making something small? Or when I read that, it just made it feel very real, and that even though there's a big, there's a lot of people working on things, the scale is big, yes, but it still made it seem to me that it's still a small team. It's still a product that you need to keep alive. It's not there's no luxury of time or excess crazy amounts of cash that you can just mess around with.
Absolutely not. I think going back to the Supercell is a small company. So we just have globally, we have over 400 employees. And a game team, typically, including all the support functions and everything, the Brawl team is maybe now 40 or so people. That includes everything: player support, marketing, QA, graphic designers working on social assets, data science, everything.
40.
And so we are constantly we're constantly put in a place where we have to put really hard priority on what we want to do. We never have the luxury to do everything we want to do. And of course you could argue, why don't you just hire more people? And yes, our games, Brawl was the first game where the game team actually grew over maybe 20 people or so. And that was completely by design after going through a really stressful period, early 2020, where we launched Brawl Pass, which is our battle pass. And shortly after we released the game in mainland of China. In that moment, the team was, it was just really intense, and COVID had just started.
Right.
So it was a super intense moment for all of us as a team. And I just saw at the end of that, after we had released in China, for me, it was just we cannot continue like this. People are going to burn out. It's not a question if, it's just a question when. And so again, I take my 4-week summer break. That year, because we couldn't travel and I really needed a break, I bought a cottage. So I spent 2 months in the forest, doing doing ridiculous stuff, painting the cottage walls and
chopping wood,
having sauna, having a wood-fired hot tub experience, lots of drinks.
With Frank, I can just imagine you chopping wood, like hauling deer carcass, like bag stringing it up.
I didn't go literally hunting. We went foraging. We have like this really nice hill with blueberries on our property.
Blueberries.
But yeah, it's like So I really took like a 4-month time off. Did not open the game once in that time. Did not spend any time. Didn't as a game lead, your instinct is in the morning, wake up, look at the metrics. How did it look yesterday? And I really wanted to disconnect, and I did get that disconnect. And then the next 4 weeks, I worked from the cottage with my crappy 4G connection. And then I went back to work. And one of the first things when I went back to work is, after I had some time to really relax, get a clear mind again, disconnect, I had a talk with Ilka, and I asked him, hey, either we reduce the scope of Brawl Stars, or you greenlight that we can hire more people than we normally do. And it was a pretty easy decision for him. He's as ambitious as we are. So he gave me a green light to hire more people. And then I started doing that. And but despite that, we still all of us believe in small teams. Small teams are really efficient, in most organizations, you have like armies of producers, etc. And in Supercell, that's not the case. There's no middleman, or like there's very, very few middle managers in the traditional sense. Nobody's really managing anyone, because a lot of things are self-managed, like timekeeping, like showing up for work, taking vacation. Nobody has to approve your vacation in Supercell. So people make the decision, I'm going on vacation. I make sure that the game team and the game doesn't suffer from that. So it's like, it's your responsibility. And so there's no manager who has to do that.
I think it comes top down too, to some degree, though. Like, your ability to disconnect and take that recharge gives probably confidence to the other team members that, like,
yeah, like I can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah,
I've never worked for someone where they can go into the hills for 2 months or 3 months.
But look, like for me, it's like I got inspired by Ilka doing this. Ilka maybe the year before, so he was gone for 2 months. And going back to the least powerful CEO, nothing broke because of it. Because we are structurally set up in a way that even if you take me out of the picture, like the game would continue doing its thing. Nothing would drastically change. But yeah, it's like, despite all of that, we liked staying small. We want to be in a team where we can, sit together, make decisions together, where we can discuss stuff, where you just in the team space say out loud, I have this stupid idea. How do you guys feel about this? Where an artist can be involved with the design side, and where, some of the programmers, they're essentially game designers in the truest sense, that they are not only getting a design handed by a game designer and then they're executing that. No, they're part of the process. So we are encouraging really for everyone in the company to bring themselves in with everything they got to give. So for me personally, again, going back to that, like, I of course have a business and a manager background, but I also at some point in my life learned to code. So I have a little bit of an idea there. I played so many games in my life, and now I've essentially 4.5 years of, or almost 5 years of game design also in me, and really practical application, production, community management, recruitment, all of that is like, yeah.
You've like, hearing all this, it's funny. I keep on looking at you, thinking about you and the whole Frank face paint too. And
I did that too.
Talking about your spreadsheets and the being pragmatic, and then I see you in a full costume in a developer video. Like, I can't shake that from my mind. I'm sorry.
The community demands, like I think, but it's a really good point. I think overall we're not tech, like,
you don't take yourself too seriously.
No, absolutely not.
Right?
Absolutely not. And on the inside, we don't feel like sometimes when you hear people on the outside talking about Supercell, they're almost like, oh, it's Supercell, or they compare themselves against Supercell and all of that. We're not comparing ourselves against anyone. It's like we're always trying to, like, how can we get better? It's like it's us, you know. How can I be a better version of myself? How can this game be a better version of itself? It's almost pointless to look at others all the time, to compare yourself against what they are doing. But yeah, this, like, I think nothing is worse than taking yourself too serious as well. So I'm like, if you ask the people working around me, I guess, like, if you see it out of context and you would just see how we're sometimes interacting, would say, oh, Frank is an ass. It's like, because I'm throwing punches, especially when I'm tired and grumpy in the morning or something, you know. It's like, it does happen. Not to a toxic degree or anything like that. But for me, it goes hand in hand. Like, in Germany, okay, if you really like someone, if you really like people, you're becoming a bigger ass to them. It's like, that's how you, that's how you express, like, I like you, and that's why I ridicule you the whole time.
Is that a German thing?
In Germany, it's a big deal for sure. Yeah, but it happens in many places, you know.
Yeah.
But it's very cultural, like, and nobody's getting offended, you know. Like, when I give you an example. Adrian, who's a game designer and QA in the team, he's also here at GDC, but at the moment, he went for a hairdresser job before coming here. So he got his hair done and everything. And I was like,
now I'm getting all self-conscious.
And I was like, oh, it was about time, man. Your hair was, like, ridiculous before that. And then he's, of course, throwing a punch back, saying, oh, you are talking. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Actually, I'm maybe the worst judge for a good haircut. But I think it's really important to not take yourself too serious, and we keep making fun of it.
You build trust that way too with your closest team.
It's like it's just super important, you know. We talked about the last 2 years we released at the end of the year the Brawlies, which is our own award show for the community. So we're awarding people in the community, like the best fan artist, the best content creator, the best esports play, whatever it is. And in the last 2 years when we did it, you know, Ilka, our CEO, was featured. And always in ridiculous ways. So this time he was a barista, being really slow at his job. So, like, I think there's this. We still feel really small companies sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Like, what other game CEO do you think is extra in a community-led video celebration? I don't know.
I think to this point too, you know, one of the maybe lesser known kind of publicly aspects of Supercell culture is it's really important for people to feel like they can be themselves. And I think that's what really leads to team bonding and understanding and just an atmosphere where people are happy.
Psychological safety.
Yes. And they give their best for the company and, you know, live their best lives themselves.
That's where risks can be taken with some level of trust, and it all has to work together though, right? And I feel that you can't have, like, too much independence and too much, like, everyone has to be on the same, like, it only works if everyone's on the same page. You can't have, like, some people who say, oh yeah, you know, like, I'm an independent thinker, or like, but really in their actions and behaviors, it doesn't, you know, come through. It's like, you really, like, everyone, you can't, like, it can't just be this hollow mantra. Like, it really does have to feel real.
And to be honest,
top bottom.
It doesn't work for everyone either.
Yeah.
It's like, a lot of people don't necessarily want to have the freedom and the responsibility coming with it.
They want to be told. They want
They just want to do a 9-to-5 job and go home at the end of the day, having done exactly what they had to do. And ironically, of course, most of the people were working pretty much 9-to-5, because again, that's a Finnish thing, right? Work-life balance, and we're pretty harsh in almost enforcing that and pushing people to take vacation and so on and so forth. Because it's very easy when you're, like, passionate about what you do, you have all that freedom to do, you know, how to do things, when to take vacation, when to go home early. Most people feel that responsibility the first time in Supercell, right? Because they never had that liberty to work the way they want, to come in when they want. So they're all taking it very, very seriously. And we're just trying to make sure that it's nicely balanced. Because of course there's busy periods where, oh, maybe today you can't go home at 5 like usual. Mm-hmm. But then we make sure that there's a quieter period and then you're taking some time off.
Well, all of July off, the freedom to, leave for a few months. I think Finland was ranked number 1. Whatever these rankings are, I don't know how
6 years in a row.
Do Finns prescribe to that? They see themselves as oh yeah, we are the happiest place. Yes, we are. I have to believe if you're the number 1, you embrace it. But then if you're number 2, you're oh, this list is bullshit. Right?
No,
I feel if you're winning it, you
Finns make fun of that all the time. I
right?
think.
Yeah, I imagine
Finns are so humble. We had to create a campaign on the 100th anniversary of the founding of the country of Finland. Mm-hmm. We created a campaign called Brag for Finland to get other countries to brag for all of the amazing things that Finland has.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we did. And I think Finland needs foreigners like myself to sometimes, highlight the positive. And not everything is perfect in Finland. Finland has its problems as well. It's totally normal for every country. But all things considered, it's a fantastic place to live and to have a life and a family.
So, kind of want to close out by talking about 2 pretty big changes, I would say, recently in the game. And I would say, in many ways, Supercell has, and I know Supercell continues to evolve, but in a lot of ways with Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Heyday, Boom Beach, Brawl Stars, it kind of paved the way for modern mobile games at the time, going from hyper casual to actually deep experiences with a lot of social structures within the games and different kinds of gameplay that I think it opened up new genres. It felt like it was genre defining games that other companies wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And in that kind of wave in the last 6 months of IDFA and, just going through a game that was gacha based to now moving into a kind of new approach, when did you know, was that we know this is going to be so different, but we need to make this decision? Was that a 15 minutes with Ilka conversation? Was that a long time coming? Because I feel it fundamentally changed. It is setting precedent and still sure. We'll take time to see the case study of what it has done. But that was a very bold move in my eyes.
Yeah. Even before global launch, back in 2018, we had a discussion as a team if we want to go down the gacha route or not. But back then, we couldn't come up with a functional alternative. But we were not big fans of gacha. There's nothing wrong with gacha in my head. It's just that we as a team didn't necessarily subscribe to how it works. But then we ran with it in the absence of better ideas. But I think early 2022, we started thinking if there's alternatives. And, there have been a few game releases where games are tackling this differently. One of the coolest examples there is Valorant. When Valorant was released, the way you unlock characters, having this contract and working your way towards that.
You have to play games to unlock.
Yeah. And there's we looked at that and we're like, man, this is something really cool. Could we do something similar? And I think that inspired us to try something else out. We knew we wanted to go away from it. We always had our struggle that it's two people start playing the game at the same moment, and one gets a legendary in his first week and the other one waits a year to get a legendary. That felt always pretty bad. It's a bad player experience. Of course, it's great if you're the guy who gets a legendary brawler, but in general, it feels like just meh. It's a bad experience, at least for one of two people. And in fact, on average, after 1 year of playing, free-to-play players had less than one legendary in year one.
After year one?
Yeah, 0.9 in average or something.
Whoa. Okay, that's really low.
And so we felt like we can move away from gacha, bring us in a happier place as a team with this change, but at the same time have a fairer setup for our community. And that's what we did. It was a huge risk. It's still early days to tell if that risk paid off or not. We expected actually our financials to drop by 20%. as a result of this change.
The early data showed that the financials were just fine, though.
Yeah, it's nothing. The irony is nothing drastic happened.
Yeah.
Which to my biggest surprise, everyone in the team expected there will be some big swings. Retention will change drastically, or like monetization will change drastically. But we ended up seeing very similar KPIs, and which is like, I cannot think of many bigger changes than this in our game. But that just goes back to this whole topic of, it's incredibly difficult to change the trajectory of a game. If your retention is bad, there's no easy fixes normally. Or, if your monetization is bad, it might be easier to change monetization than retention. But for us, yes, so far it's not been as bad as we thought it would be. And I think it builds on a stronger foundation for the future for the game.
Well, I have to imagine the most vocal community in that situation would be the 1% that has a legendary and feels like because of the chance. But it's a mitigating when to take the voice of the vocal minority to like what's more important. Like you want to satisfy the 99% that never had a chance in the first year to get something.
And for us, like right now, like it's been, so we released one update already after that change. Like the 1-star reviews we get, for example, on Google Play at the moment, 25% of those are still about the gacha removal.
It's funny, people like are 1-star gacha removal, like that's a
in other games you would likely not see that.
It's the opposite, like typically, or I think the player's kind of moving away from that, like some of those mechanics. The more modern, I don't want to overgeneralize, and it obviously by region it differs, but I feel like the audience is trying to move a little bit away from those mechanics.
Yeah, and again, like I personally don't hold a grudge against gacha, and I think there's really good use cases where it makes sense to have gacha, but in our case it's just not necessary.
Yeah,
and I'd rather have like a fair playing field for everyone, which is rewarding, work and determination towards unlocking a character, then you really feel like you deserve it. And we actually, as part of this whole process, we speed up the progression of unlocking, for example, legendaries. Now, after 1 year of playing, you will have 2.
It's a big jump.
So it's like, so that is like but of course, if you're part of our community, it might not feel like that immediately, because you're like, but I always, I opened the 100 gacha box and I got my legendary. But it's that's very 0.1% of our community. And my expectation is that over time there will be less and less people complaining about this change. It's just a huge change, and huge change by definition creates people who will be unhappy with that change.
Yeah. Well, there's another elegant change that you were talking to me about with the mastery titles. And this was kind of, I'd love for you just to tell a story about like where that came from. But it, like, to me, the way I summarized it in my head after you told it to me was a very small change that has a very kind of like profound impact.
Yes.
That also ties back to the fact of like unlocking brawlers, and it's cool to be able to unlock it. But for like your bigger issue at a design level is actually people wanting to play as the brawler.
Yeah. So
this is like February, right? Like
end of February we released an update which included mastery. Mastery tried to solve a problem with we already had the mind before we rolled out the new meta. Okay, we knew this was coming, but it was the new meta essentially puts everyone on rails. If you play all the quests every day, all your token progression, then it's a very predictable pace how you're progressing towards unlocking brawlers. It's super predictable, which some people might argue it's boring. And it also leads to a situation where after like the game was tuned around 45 to 60 minutes of playtime a day, and you could max your account progression in that time. We thought it would be good to give players a way to have more control over when they unlock a brawler, more control to play when they have more time to play, but not make it a feature which is only for the best players, for example, or the high-end players. And so we came up with mastery, and mastery is essentially progression track per brawler. You have to play a brawler to gain mastery points. And there's a bunch of progression rewards, which helps you with unlocking a new brawler, with upgrading brawlers. And the later rewards, the more time investment is purely cosmetic. So you can unlock most of the mastery rewards for one brawler in 8 hours of playtime. And that means you get all the progression. But if you want the cosmetics, that will take you much longer. The final reward on the cosmetics track is a new cosmetic item we have in the game, which is really, it's not like super mind-blowing or anything, but it's titles. And those titles you can use under your player tag, whatever brawler you play. But they're very brawler specific while unlocking them. And it's actually a feature we already discussed maybe 4 years ago between like Jon, the original game lead, Tommy, who was a programmer on the team, former Clash of Clans game lead, and myself. And Jon and I both had played World of Warcraft intensively, and Tommy had never played it. So Tommy just didn't believe in titles at all. He's like, "This like nobody will like them. It's not gonna fly. Why the hell are we doing this?" So we dropped it. But now we got it out of the drawer, and yeah, those titles are like a real carrot for many people, and we try to keep them really diverse. Some are funny, some are edgy, some are just descriptive, and to really allow the community to play around with it and have fun with it, and like really like focus on the fun. And of course the story we touched on last night is that there was one character in the game. A character in the game is called Pam, and Pam is like a support character. Support characters are already underplayed by definition, and she's like this middle-aged woman. And essentially, she looks like many of our players' moms would look like. And it's like, as a player, if you're a teenager, how exciting is it actually to play your own mother as a playable character? So out of all the brawlers,
for what's worth, I would always play as Marge Simpson in the Simpsons arcade game. I don't know,
but playing against Pam is fun.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yes. Yeah. So she was the like one of our content creators, Lex. One of the tribe guys, he's doing like every so often he's doing like a survey amongst his viewers about the popularity of brawlers, and it's a voting, and Pam consistently ends up on the bottom of that list. So not because of that, but just because we wanted to have fun and be a bit edgy with the titles, we gave Pam the title "Your Mum," and the consequence of that is that right now she's the 5th most popular brawler in being played.
From being like the least.
From being super unpopular, now she's like the 5th most played because people really want that title, Your Mum.
Your Mom.
Because, you know, you can't play around with that so much with your name. You can change your name in Brawl.
What team doesn't want to have Your Mom as a title? You know, it's like...
Yeah. So it's like... and it was like, it's maybe one of the... I checked with the team a lot before. Like, I put all these titles in myself. And I came up with most of these titles. And Your Mom is maybe the edgiest title we have in the game. And it was an interesting conversation with our localization team, for example, because they saw that and they're like...
cultural things or
like, do you know, in German that sounds really harsh. I'm like, I don't care, do it. It's like...
as the German,
so, it's like,
as the German Trump card.
It's like, what will our audience find fun and have fun with?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not mean-spirited. It's just a fun thing to play with. And sometimes we shouldn't read too much into some individual things like
trying to
this.
please everyone.
Yeah, it's like, of course, for some people who will be like, this steps over the line. But on average, like, yes, it's definitely coasting the line, and I agree with that. But it needs to be like that to be fun.
I know that the team receives fan art and letters and commentary on the characters. Are there any interesting stories from the players that you've heard that you'd want to share with us?
Love letters to Frank, but also to you.
It's like one of the funny things is that some of us public-facing figures in Brawl have very clear preference for a brawler, and we're almost synonyms for those brawlers in the eyes of the community. So Dani, one of our community members, he's a Brazilian guy, joined the team almost at the beginning.
Shout out Danny.
Shout out to Danny. He's like one hell of a community manager, and his favorite brawler is Piper. And so for one of the Brawly videos, we came up, like Danny came up with most of the script and most of the planning, and he thought every scene in the Brawlies, every award should be presented in a different way. So one is like just like us sitting on a couch presenting an award, but then another award, it was Danny and Paula on video, both of them being animated. In one scene there were sock figurines. In one scene they were in game, each as their favorite brawler.
No way.
But so we made a skin for Piper, which is Danny. So you have Piper's dress
Long
and
hair.
everything with a base cap and a beard.
You're kidding me. That's awesome.
And so Paula's favorite brawler is Jessie. She cosplayed her a bunch of times, and so we put those characters in as skins, but only for that video. And of course, the community keeps asking for all those Danny Piper skins and all of that to be released to the public.
So you're gonna do it?
Who knows? Who knows what happens in the future? It's like, again, this goes back to the like our very engaged community, which is on social media, which is likely representing less than 1% of our player base. They would like that. But 99% of our players, they would likely not really understand what's going on. Why do we get the skin? Who's Danny? So it's like, it's a fine balance to strike that right. But maybe we still do it. It's like, maybe there's very little harm in doing it.
Well, it's good to have, like, to know your core at such an intimate level. Like everyone talks about, target your core, talk to your core, do everything for the core. And then I guess it's hyper core. Like your community is probably your hyper core, right? It's like the 1% of the already engaged user.
Yeah.
And taking little notes and little behaviors, little things that they want that can probably be then scaled across the other rest. But at least you have these, like, you know, some studios when just starting off are just trying to find that base player and try to turn that base player into like the hyper, you know, core community contributor, I guess. And that, I think long term, it kind of keeps the game fresh and alive and interesting. Well, you're already updating things at I didn't realize it was 2 months cycle. So like things are typically pretty fresh and exciting. But
when we slowed down, we even had more updates. I think in 2021 we still released 9 updates or so. So it's like, but last year we started settling on a 2-month cadence, and we feel as a team really good with this, and so that's what we're sustaining for now.
Well, any last kind of shout outs to the Brawl team? Anything to look players can look forward to? Any words of wisdom to someone starting a studio right now, maybe in a player experience role, thinking about, you know, here's a path forward to be a game lead. Like don't be shy maybe to stand behind a game you think is great, or send a cold email if you need to.
Sure. First, big shout out to my team. The Brawl Stars team is an amazing bunch of people. Like, as I said, like we're like in Helsinki, we're just over 31. We have 21 nationalities in the team. Fair representation of women in the team. It's just an amazing team to see them every day, firing on all cylinders. Well, for example, I'm here now. Game development is continuing like nothing, you know. So it's really one of the coolest teams ever. We're hiring. If you're looking for a job, we're looking always for engineers, server engineers, client engineers, but also marketing roles, for example, at the moment. Besides that, if you're starting something new, or if you're even, you know, entering the job world, I think one of the biggest, it's my personal credo, even though it's sometimes harder than it sounds, it's like, stay true to yourself. Don't bend too much to what other people want to do, or even in jobs. You know, if you stop believing in what you're working on, then it's probably a good moment to look for a way out and find a different role. Like, I try to live my whole life like this, and it's sometimes stupidly so. So sometimes I left a job even though I should have not at that point. But I really believe that it really helps you to crystallize what you actually want to do in life, what is your real passion, figuring out what you like, and then go for that. And there's all the barriers you might perceive, being at degrees or experience, etc. That's, at the end of the day, those barriers will likely go away once you start really working towards it.
I love that. Unapologetically passionate about the things you believe in. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. I know this is like, I don't know if you've done this is the longest version of a Brawl talk you've probably ever done. 2 hours instead of 2 minutes or something
Probably,
like that. So thanks for taking the time.
Thanks a lot.
And just chatting about everything. The story's crazy. It's really an amazing kind of journey you've been on.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And yeah, good luck getting back to Finland and cracking out your
Thank you
next
so much.
update.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Doug. Bye, guys.
Thank you.